This conference will now be recorded.
Casey, I'm 1 and Doug is 2.
Thank you, Hugh, and good evening.
All right.
Hey, Casey, how you? Hey, Sean.
Hey, Doug.
Good evening, Doug.
Hey, Ashley.
Hi. How's everyone doing tonight? Pretty well. Good.
Hey, John. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone.
Hi, John.
Hello, hello. It's been a busy day.
Yes, it sure has been, I'm sure, for you.
Casey, I'm showing 7 o'clock. Are you ready to start the meeting?
Absolutely, we're ready to go. Thank you.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending the West Goshen Township Board of Supervisors meeting of May the 18th, 2021. To start the meeting, if you wouldn't mind, please stand if you can and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Please be aware that this video audio meeting is being recorded tonight. So we can have a smooth running meeting, please note the following. While you are listening, please keep yourself on mute to eliminate distracting background noise. Each agenda item requiring a vote will proceed with a motion and a second by a board member, followed first by board member comments and questions, and then second by public commenting questions before a roll call vote is taken. When wishing to speak, please address myself as the meeting chair, requesting to comment and announce your name. And please know there is also an opportunity to raise any issues not specifically on the agenda during the public comment period at the end. Very good. So turning to the main agenda items, the first one tonight is discussion and possible approval of a final subdivision plan for 7 residential lots for Big Bear Gulch at 504 South Concord Road. I believe Rick will introduce the subject.
Would you like me to share my screen with the plans?
Why not, Rick? I mean, sometimes it's hard to see on the screen, but if if you're able to zoom in on a particular item, it's always worth trying to have it up. So go ahead.
Okay, you should have the grading plan for the project up on the screen. This is a 7-lot subdivision located at 504 South Concord Road. It's been through a number of iterations. The main issue here has been sound attenuation from 202, which is at the upper part of your screen. Several of the houses are very close to 202. The applicant has proposed to deal with that sound issue by placing additional screening trees along the perimeter there along 202, and has also created an easement for that landscaping so that the HOA will be responsible for maintaining that screening and additional vegetation in perpetuity. There is a small cul-de-sac street being proposed. The length of the cul-de-sac street does not meet our code requirements, so the applicant is requesting a waiver for the length of the cul-de-sac. The bulb of the cul-de-sac does meet all of our requirements for width and radius and cartway and everything that we normally require. So the waiver is only for the length from the beginning of the bulb to the street intersection. A waiver is also being requested for the roadway width of 28 feet rather than 32 feet. This has become a common waiver request, one that we support to reduce impervious surface and still leave plenty of cartway width for two-way traffic. The 7 lots do not have on-site stormwater management. The ground did not perk to a point that would allow that. So all of the stormwater management is achieved through conveyance of the stormwater on the eastern side of the project to a relatively large rain garden bioretention facility. And again, that does not have infiltration. It achieves reduction by evapotranspiration in the rain garden. There also will be a short portion of the existing township road, which extends down towards the end of the basin currently. That's going to be abandoned to a point just past the cemetery driveway, and the roadway will be removed and a permanent barricade will be placed there to prevent any vehicular traffic from proceeding through that area. Planning Commission has reviewed this project and has recommended it for your approval. And I believe we have a representative of DL Howe here if you should have any further questions regarding the project.
Okay, thanks, Rick. So over to the board. Do you have questions for Rick about the proposed development?
I just have one question, Sean. In the homeowners association agreement that will be part of the purchase of any of these properties, is there a stipulation in that homeowners agreement that the township, the West Goshen Township, will not be held liable for any future noise mitigation measures to be taken along the Route 202 corridor there?
I have
Rick, I have the HOA declaration in my possession. I've not had an opportunity to review it yet. I know that the applicant's counsel was not in favor of that kind of language. The township has sovereign immunity and could not be sued for something along those lines. but we definitely will make sure that it has adequate disclosures. And I mean, one of the conditions you may want to do is have, in addition to the homeowner's declaration, some other notice being required in the deed for the lots that abut 202. Just again, full disclosure to everybody. I mean, again, anybody that buys those lots obviously is going to walk the property, you would think, and see what's behind them, but it doesn't hurt for the township to prevent somebody coming in and saying, well, I had no idea I was buying a lot that abutted a 4-lane highway. But to answer your question, Mr. Hellman, I've not had an opportunity to review the declaration yet. And if the board were to see fit to grant approval this evening, they would have to do so subject to a condition that the declaration is reviewed and approved.
It has also come to our attention that the stormwater operations and maintenance agreement has also not yet been reviewed by the solicitor, so that would again need to be a condition of approval as well.
Rick, I did review that right before the meeting, and it is the acceptable form. I just needed clarification from you on whether the stormwater facilities were on individual lots or on, and I still have a question. Is the lot where the stormwater rain garden is that a lot to be conveyed for a home, or is that a lot to be conveyed to the HOA?
It's a lot to be conveyed to a home.
To a home, okay. The way they want to handle that, though, is they don't want that particular, I guess it's lot 7, they don't want that lot owner to be solely responsible for that. So they're going to identify the stormwater facilities as a controlled facility that has to be maintained by the HOA. So for the most part, the stormwater agreement is acceptable. There's probably a couple minor tweaks now that I understand this, where the stormwater is proposed.
So it's from my understanding from what you said then, Kristen, that it would be a conditional to the approval made tonight if we so decide to do that, that the noise mitigation measure would be part of the homeowners association agreement. Is that a correct understanding?
Just that the declaration itself has to be reviewed and approved by the township. Typically review the declaration to make sure that any plan notes, for example, this landscaping easement, that's something that has to be called out as an HOA responsibility, has to be a deed restriction that's contained within, runs against the property to all of these lots as members of the HOA.
Okay.
I have a couple of general questions, just probably for my own education. So in terms of when does a subdivision result in an HOA being formed? Like, what is the driver or requirement for whether an HOA is needed or not, or what are the rules around that?
The Uniform Plan Community Act defines that, whether it's applicable, but in circumstances where you either have property to be owned and maintained by a common association, or you have the common element or common facility, or if you have what's called a controlled facility where it's not owned by the HOA, but you're shifting the obligation of maintenance onto the HOA. So for example, in this case, the maintenance of the stormwater facilities is not going to fall on the owner of lot 7, it's going to fall on the homeowners association as a whole. That's one of the situations where you would create the HOA. But I can send to you the applicability sections of the Uniform Plan Community Act. It really depends upon basically the driving force is what I just said. If there's going to be ownership of either streets, sidewalks, trees, roads, sometimes in private developments, obviously you need to create an association to own the roads.
Okay, and then in terms of noise attenuation from 202, how do we know that the landscaping plan will be sufficient to moderate decibels or the noise in general to an acceptable level? Is there any criteria that we can measure that establishes that? And if you drive down 202, I don't think we've got other properties in West Goshen that are this close, residential properties that are this close to that road. Correct me if I'm wrong. And obviously, as you go further north on 202, you see those large concrete barriers. So what decides whether landscaping and a buffer is acceptable for the development?
Well, I can pretty much guarantee you that this landscape buffer will not lower the sound from 202 to a level that complies with our noise ordinance. However, there are a couple of houses that I'm aware of off of Ware Circle, which is just to the northwest of this project. They're probably about as close as these are. As to the legalities of it, I would have to leave that up to Kristen.
I don't think there isn't really a standard that we would be applying to this. I mean, it's a buyer beware situation. It's not like we have a provision in a subdivision ordinance that says you can't, create a lot that is adjacent to a highway where such that the noise coming from the highway is a certain decibel level. I mean, there just isn't a standard like that in the subdivision ordinance. What jumps out at me though is that if you don't grant the waiver for the length of the cul-de-sac, then obviously they don't get that many lots that close to 202. So, that's one of the ways you can control it. I'm not suggesting that that's the way the board should go, but there really isn't a standard in the subdivision ordinance that I'm aware of that we're holding them to. And I'm not a noise expert, but I've sat through numerous hearings where I've heard that landscaping doesn't do anything to attenuate noise. So I'm not sure that landscaping is really is going to be a super effective noise mitigator.
And in fact, we've actually done some studies down at the shooting range with landscaping and sound attenuation, and it has negligible impact on sound attenuation based on our experience with shooting.
Okay, thank you. So one last question on the cul-de-sac. Where is the high point on that road? And does the stormwater all drain to the basin that's on this property off the road, or does some of it drain into Concord, South Concord Road and storm drain on Concord Road?
Alex, do you want to address that, please?
Yeah, I can address that. So right around where the curve is for the road is right around where the high point is. So right at the peak of the curve, so to speak, would be the high point. So a majority of the impervious that's being added to the lot is heading down towards the cul-de-sac bulb. So right around where that the manhole is for the sanitary, right there is right about where the high point in the road is, and then it pitches down at about 2% or so towards 202 for the road, and then once it gets to the houses, about 2 to 5%, then it falls back down from there. But majority of the impervious on the lot is getting captured and routed to the basin.
Okay. Other board members
Sean.
with any questions?
Yeah, Sean, this is Hugh.
Go ahead.
Is this the old Scout property?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there other questions from board members relative to the design of the subdivision, the lots, stormwater, sewer?
I don't know if I missed this part of the conversation, but did we address the planning commission's illustration on that page 4 and what they suggested with the shared driveways and everything?
The applicant chose not to use that approach.
Okay. All right.
Rick, I have a question. If the 28-foot width, is that a width that you would suggest that the board seek to not have parking on one or both sides, or with a 28-foot wide road, is that still sufficient to allow parking on one or both sides?
That's generally sufficient for parking on one or both sides.
Were there any questions, Rick, that came up during the Planning Commission's review that are worth the board understanding?
I think the Planning Commission's primary concern was sound, and that was discussed at quite some length, and what our legal abilities to do and not to do with that. And I believe Dr. White was the only dissenting vote to recommend approval of the subdivision, and I won't speak for him, but I believe his issue was the sound and the number of lots on the property.
Okay, thank you. So just as a matter of exercise here, if the variance wasn't granted because of for the cul-de-sac length being not in compliance, what would the development plan look like? Would it be similar to what is in the Chester County planning document?
It could be, or it could be different. If the township's proposed dedicated township street with a shorter length was not approved, you'd have to have 7 individual driveways coming off of South Concord Road, which would most likely negate vacation of the section of road that we were going to vacate. And whether or not those lots would need to be close to the road or not close to the road is questionable. It's possible that flag lots could be constructed to allow houses to be closer to 202. So again, I think there are a number of different scenarios that could occur, one of which could be similar to what the County Planning Commission proposed, but I don't think that that's by all means the only alternative.
Yeah. I mean, personally, in my opinion, I like the cul-de-sac design. It gets those Amazon trucks away from parking on Concord to drop off packages. It creates a sense of community a little better. So, but it has the downside of encroaching much more into the back of this property and putting the houses close to 202, closer to 202. All right, so are there any other board comments or questions? I would actually, if you can indulge me, board, like to hear if there are any public comments or questions before we entertain a motion for approval. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this?
Hi, Sean, this is Doug White. Sean, I was just wondering about Rick, question to Rick, the 28-foot width being reduced from 32 feet for the portion of the road from South Concord to the beginning of the cul-de-sac bulb. Snow plowing, will that still be okay for snow plowing and as such to provide enough area for the snow to be pushed onto the properties? Thank you.
Yes, I believe it will. We've been using the 28-foot width for probably the last 10 years or so, and should probably make an ordinance change to make that official, due to stormwater concerns. The primary consideration with snow removal is that the cul-de-sac is of adequate size to allow the equipment to turn properly and also to have a storage area for the snow.
Okay. All right, well, as long as you feel that the 28-foot width is safe enough, they can park, they can plow the snow, people can get in and out, and has a side benefit of the reduction of impervious surface. That's good. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Doug. Are there any other public comments or questions? So, board, we have a recommendation from our planning committee for approval. We have a condition of approval tonight if we're going to make a motion to do that the approval is conditional upon our solicitor's review and approval of the HOA documents. So would a board member like to make a motion to approve this subdivision with that condition?
I'll make that a motion.
Thank you, Hugh. Is there a second to Hugh's motion?
Sure, I'll second it.
Thank you, Ashley. So we have a motion and a second. Are there any final board member comments or questions before we take a vote? Hearing none, are there any public comments or questions? Any final questions?
Yes, Sean, this is Doug once more. Just to make a little comment here, I did oppose it on the Planning Commission. Basically, I wanted to, I was just concerned about the lots 4 and 6 being too close to 202, and I thought a development that would have adaptive reuse of the existing Boy Scout house to keep that little forested area, and the addition of 3 or 4 additional home sites just along South Concord Road, and to leave the back portion open. It was just an idea, but I understand that what is proposed does meet all of our ordinances. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. We appreciate your taking such a hard look at this and thinking of alternatives. So, board, we have a motion and a second for approval, conditioned upon approval of the homeowners association documents. So I'm going to take a roll call vote, starting with Ashley.
Yes.
John.
Aye.
Hugh.
Aye.
Robin.
Aye.
I vote yes. Thank you very much. All right, now the next agenda item is number 5, continued discussion of public safety and quality of life issues at Quality Inn, 943 South High Street. So I can kick this one off. I'll find my notes. So at our April 20th meeting, we had public discussion around the continuing issue of the amount of calls to the police department and their need to respond to incidents at the Quality Inn. We heard from several residents concerned about their personal safety and the incidents that they've had living close to the property, and the general escalation of incidents over the last 2 to 3 years. And we decided there, we agreed 2 or 3 actions. One was that a couple of the board would meet together with staff with the property owner and have a conversation just to make sure, you know, that the property owner was aware of the concerns that we have, and to discuss potential solutions in terms of what could be done to invest in more security at the property, and to do other things that would discourage the kind of activity and behavior that we've experienced there. And I'm reporting back to the board this evening that Ashley and myself met virtually with the property owner, Mr. Dmitry Zilbishtin, together with Bill, Casey, and Rick on the 6th of May. We had originally scheduled a meeting and it got cancelled and was rescheduled to the 6th of May. We had a cordial conversation, but I have to say it was frank too, in terms of what the situation was. Mr. Zilbishtin indicated that he was struggling to invest in the property, did not have the money to do it. So when the conversation turned to consideration of could he put a security fence up at the rear of the property and at least prevent residents from wandering into the neighborhood behind. Bill also suggested, was there any opportunity to have some on-site security there, particularly at the weekend evenings and nights? He's basically stated that he did not have the money to do that, and he did not indicate that he was interested in pursuing those suggestions. He also said he was looking to sell the property to a buyer wanting to operate as a hotel business, obviously, but right now the revenue stream and the income from the property was not attracting many business offers. The economics were not looking favorable, and he was not seeing any interest right now in being able to sell the business. We did discuss with him the opportunity that the board would, be interested in looking at the zoning if there was a particular different type of use for the property, that the board could be flexible in considering what those would be, depending on what business interest there might be for it. We also reconfirmed, though, that the original idea that came before the board earlier this year related to a large apartment complex, was a non-starter because of all the traffic issues and the very poor location of this property relative to access onto the 202 road and bypass. So I feel we were, open and honest around some of the ideas that we thought might help the property owner address some of the security issues, but I didn't feel that we got any response that indicated there was a willingness there to do any of these things. I did express that, the continuing crime issues and the residents' concern for safety was something that the board took very seriously, and that we needed to look into what next steps we should take to address the problem. And then subsequent to that meeting, Bill contacted the Quality Inn Corporation just to inform them that, we were concerned about these issues and make sure they were aware of the township's concern for the amount of crime that we are witnessing and have been experiencing at this location. So Bill, I don't know if you have any particular feedback you want to share on that.
I really don't. I have not had any formal conversations with anyone from the Quality Inn outside of the one email from the corporate council where she had asked for information, and I had directed her to Chief Carroll for police reports. So outside of that, that's the only conversation that I've had with anyone from the corporation.
Okay. So, having described what the actions have been since our last discussion, board members, tonight we're really here to kind of decide, are there any further steps we'd like to take at this point or consider, given, like I said, really a reluctance on the part of the property owner to indicate any willingness to invest in any security changes at the property. What are your thoughts?
Well, if I could ask Sean, is there going to be any movement? It doesn't sound like there's going to be any movement on the part of the owner of this particular property at this location. Is there going to be any efforts made on the part of corporate to bring about any changes at this point, or any indication that there will be any such attempt?
Well, I guess my answer would be we don't know, John. I mean, like I said, I don't believe the property owner is interested in investing in the property. He's not said he has the money to do that. Like Bill said, we've reached out to corporate and informed them of our concerns, and they've asked for more information from the police chief. And really, it's in their hands as to whether there's anything they can do to help with regard to the property owner getting low interest loans or something else, whether they can help him with regard to investing in some of the ideas that we suggested relative to security, if there's not other ones too. But to answer your question, John, we don't know what they may do.
Okay. So it's not clear where the ball is and whose court then. So apparently, I guess it's incumbent upon the township to make some further move. Is that the correct assessment at this point of the situation?
I mean, we could wait a little bit longer and see if in another month there's any response from the corporate organization as to what they've learned from our police chief reports and whether they believe there's an engagement they would like to have in terms of something they're helping the property owner with. So we could wait to see if that happens. Personally, with regard to Mr. Zilberstein, I don't think he's interested in, like I said, he says he has no money to do it. So I don't know what else right now, I don't believe there's any action intended on his part.
Okay. Well, what is your recommendation? Is it worthwhile to reach out to corporate for a follow-up inquiry about what they intend to do?
I mean, to me, there's two courses of action we could take. One is to wait and then inquire of corporate in another month, maybe after they've received and reviewed the information they've requested from our police department. Another course could be to request our solicitor to look at creating a new ordinance that would establish a license to operate hotels, motels, and inns in West Goshen, which we don't have today. And as part of that ordinance, we could request that there be some language that is intended to ensure, a public safety component to that operation in terms of being able to maintain and have a license. If we do that, obviously we're going to incur costs through our solicitor. So, if we don't want to do that tonight, we could wait another month and see if there's any movement or any information that would make that something we don't need to do. Or we could just move it along tonight and have two things going in parallel. That's kind of where my thoughts are.
Okay.
One of the other options, Sean, is, and I had suggested this, obviously in an attorney-client memorandum to the board, but I'm happy to discuss that. Besides the licensing scheme, there's also, you have already a chapter in your code under nuisances. So you could add to that addresses the specific nuisances that you think are occurring at this property. And it wouldn't, that particular ordinance change would not apply only to hotels, it would apply across the board. But that would be one other option. It doesn't have to, the only way, there's more than one way to skin the cat, I think, as far as an ordinance is concerned. And then the other option would be something along the lines of, it sounds as if the property owner is interested and willing to sell the property to the right person. And maybe it's something that the board and maybe a comprehensive plan does this, to look beyond what the current zoning ordinance would permit for uses on the site, and have a dialogue with the property owner about what kinds of uses you could think are appropriate. You do think are appropriate. Obviously, you've had one proposal before you, and there was a lot of concerns about the density as a result of the traffic, but maybe there's another use that's not currently called out in your zoning that you're willing to accept. And I think that information would be helpful to the seller, or to the current owner, so that if he is trying to market the property, it's not just somebody looking at it for what it's currently zoned for. So that's another thing that try to work cooperatively to identify what is an appropriate use for that site, and is there a market for that use.
Sean, if I can chime in, Mr. Z did send me his broker's information, so I do have his broker's information.
And one other thing, Sean, I'm sorry to interrupt. Staff and I talked about the situation with the university being closed, and COVID obviously has probably caused more economic strain on the property than what the property owner obviously anticipated when he purchased it. So the wait and see approach until the university's back, they have announced that they intend to go back in the fall. The market itself may help, letting some time go by, and hopefully letting more users use the hotel may give the owner some opportunity to have more financial gain and be able to address some of the situation. So I would say it's a fluid situation probably as far as the market conditions, and maybe as that improves, as we all hope, then some of the other issues go away, or are at least mitigated.
Yeah, those are all good suggestions, Kristen. I am a little concerned about the trend over 4 years, though, in terms of the calls for service to the police department. So COVID has definitely probably exacerbated the economics of the property, and it's been tough for a lot of business owners. But we did know that back in the 2017, 18, 19 period, there was a significant escalation in calls for service. So the trend has been there for some time with respect to the amount of crime and the calls for police assistance. And so, the issue is that some of these calls are at a level of disturbance that are kind of pretty concerning. So I asked the chief earlier around a little bit more information on the kind of numbers he has, and he was indicating that around 25% of the calls for service involve a disturbance that requires the dispatch of 2 patrols because of the potential for it being a violent situation. So I am concerned about waiting and not really moving the ball forward on all fronts, so to speak. So my personal view is, in addition to working with the property owner around some conversations on the flexibility the board might have around rezoning for certain different uses there, and giving him some direction as to what might be entertained in terms of something other than what it's currently zoned for. In addition to that, I would like to look at the option to have some change either to the existing ordinance or a separate ordinance, as you suggested, in terms of what a reasonable approach would be to try to mitigate this problem through having something in place that would address it if it continues at the pace and level of issues that we see. So those are my thoughts. I just would like to hear from the other board members what they're thinking at this point.
Sean, I heard earlier in the conversation that you mentioned something about a fence across there between the property and the neighbors. Having some familiarity with the property, I would say that that should be a very viable option to knock down some of the interactions with the neighbors and thereby help the whole situation. I don't know. I'd have to rely on Chief Carroll as to whether that would help the situation if a lot of the calls are generated by the neighbors or are the calls internal from the property.
Chief, do you have any specific information to hand relative to the calls that are coming from the front desk versus calls from residents at the hotel or calls from the neighborhood?
I don't. That's something I can try and work out, but that's not part of the queries that we run.
In your, do you think a fence at the, I mean, obviously it can't, to me, it surely would help to have a fence that kind of prevented folks from wandering off into the neighborhood. It would at least mitigate some of the concerns that the residents might have about what they're seeing on their own properties. So I agree with you, Hugh. It would be nice. I mean, that's where I would hope something like the quality incorporation would be looking at how they could assist the property owner in investing in that type of an approach. So that in the totality between what they could help with, what could be done on the property, whether some internal security would help, you know, get COVID further behind us, that things would get on an upswing and not be at the level that we've seen in the last 2 years for sure. So again, what do the other board members think?
Well, I agree with you that I don't want to see us sit for a month when the residents are going to potentially still be affected on a regular basis. I like the idea of the fence, but we need to require that quality is responsible and the owner of that property should be making those investments. I'm also wondering, you know, how viable his business is right now. And I think we really have to focus mostly on our residents, and he'll have to go through whatever process he can through his organization to decide whether he's going to be able to float or he's going to end up sinking. I think we need to still keep the focus on the residents.
Thank you, Robin. John or Ashley, any thoughts?
Yeah. So as far as the fence is concerned, I think we already went down that road with the owner. I don't think that the owner has the capital to invest in a fence or any kind of weekend security. I know that was brought up as well. I think there are a couple of key pieces of information. Number one, the information that I got from our meeting with Mr. Z was that there is an intent to sell, that the property owner is actively seeking out a buyer for that property. And I would be more concerned if they were not, and that this would continue and we'd actually have to take action on that if they wanted to stay. But I think as a township, as far as our own resources are concerned and our own time management and our own finances are concerned, it might be in our best interest to take more of a proactive approach. And like I know that Bill mentioned, sort of seek out and help the buyer seek out potential buyers for that property and consider zoning changes if we need to down the road, and sort of work together in a positive way rather than allocate a bunch of time and energy to putting toward an ordinance. I mean, that's kind of what I'm feeling right now.
Okay, thanks, Ashley. John?
Well, I'm not one to believe that every solution has to have a nail in order to make it come together. So the only thing you bring to the table is a hammer. So, but I think in this situation here, I think the owner basically wants the township to just basically go away and just leave the situation as is, which is not acceptable. So I would tend to agree with a two-pronged approach. To let some time play in here, but using that time to develop some tools in the toolbox here that the township can utilize and let the owner be aware that this is where we're moving. And I think it would be worthwhile to have our solicitor to begin to draft either an ordinance that would require licensing with security considerations as part of that licensing requirement that they would have to meet, or changing the ordinances that we have in place that would cover this regarding nuisances. I don't know which one would be the better way to go. I guess that would be something that could be determined by the solicitor. But I quite frankly think that the corporate should be let them know that we're not happy, and we've had meetings here, and we want to see a change happen, and we're also looking to address this from our end, the township, by developing an ordinance that would deal with the situation. So I think we're going to have to go in a couple different directions here.
Okay, thanks, John. Well, I'm going to suggest a way forward, and then I'm going to ask if there are any members of the public that would like to comment. So I would like to suggest that we do ask our solicitor to evaluate an approach that would use either an existing ordinance or a new ordinance to address the issue of the nuisance that the crime is creating. Nuisance doesn't seem the right word to me, but that's how we could address it in the way ordinances are used, or the licensing approach, while simultaneously doing what Ashley suggested, which is trying to continue a conversation with the property owner around looking at what zoning, and obviously we need staff to help us with this, what zoning changes would potentially help facilitate a change of away from the use of it being a hotel at that point, while still having some form of viable business that isn't going to create a huge volume of traffic, because as we know, that is such a terrible location for a business that would have a lot of traffic. So that would be my suggestion. So in which case we would need to approve the solicitor working on this tonight and asking staff to take this on in terms of the zoning piece with the property owner. Does that seem a reasonable approach?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would think it would. Should we also, would it be appropriate to address a letter? And at what point would it be appropriate, if so, to corporate and also, of course, to the current owner, that of the fact that the township has received many resident complaints here and is looking for change to occur. Otherwise, the township will be forced to take some further action.
Well, I think, John, I mean, we haven't formally written to them with a, kind of letterhead notification, but we have, obviously the property owner is aware of where we are. We've had the conversation with him and I've reported back on that. Bill has contacted the corporate office. They've asked for information from our police department. So I think we're in motion with that. If we haven't heard anything in another 3-4 weeks, in terms of their response to our emails, then yeah, let's reach out in a more formal way. But I think for now we can just kind of see what we've set in motion and see how it plays out.
All right, sounds good to me.
Okay. So having heard the board discussion, is there any member of the public here tonight that would like to comment on this? I see Mr. Goldthorpe. Would you like to comment?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for. So just to clarify, myself and Sam Tarantini, he's also on the call. We are the contract purchaser for the property, so we still have the property under contract, and would love to continue a conversation with the township. Just from hearing everybody tonight, it seems to me that we have an issue existing, and there's a math problem here that could potentially be solved. So I heard previously our multifamily proposal had too much density and therefore was generating too much traffic. But perhaps there could be some alternative approach, still maybe including multifamily, but perhaps less density, keeping it close or below the existing traffic count that's generated by the existing use. When we look at a site, we put a lot of assumptions into our spreadsheet to determine how a project's going to perform. And if we could all work together on some of those assumptions, perhaps we're not so far apart in working out something that can meet everyone's goals, where we have no more traffic than currently. Any redevelopment would have stormwater improvements that would be required by DEP. So there could be some additional benefits to stormwater improvements. And so we'd love to talk to the town in greater detail if we could. Certainly, I heard the request for a fence. I know we've in the past, if we were moving along in the process, we'd be happy to install a fence and be happy to talk about that with the board in greater detail when the time might be appropriate, if the appropriate staff wanted to get together.
Well, that sounds like a really good idea to me. Staff, do you have any comment on Mr. Goldthorpe's suggestion there in terms of having that conversation?
Yeah,
understanding.
We typically will meet with on a staff level with developers to discuss these types of issues. We're more than happy to meet with anyone from Mr. Goldthorpe's company. Absolutely.
Okay. So let me revisit my previous suggestion. Did the board still, in light of that as being, sounds like a key next step, a key way forward, do we still wish our solicitor to look at, like John said, developing another tool for the toolbox with respect to our ordinance? Or do we want to wait?
I think it'd be worthwhile putting it off for another month, Sean.
Okay. Ashley, you were still on that same page, I believe, is what you commented earlier, correct?
That's great. I don't think that now's the time to do that now.
Okay. Robin and John, have you changed your mind? If there is a healthy conversation coming up between a potential developer here for the site and some new alternatives? I'm sorry, Robin. You're breaking up, Robin. Could you repeat that?
I was just saying, I'm grateful that Mr. Goldthorpe was on today, because I didn't expect that we would be able to have this conversation. And I think it's a good way to move forward.
Okay. John?
Well, let's see what happens. So what are we going to give it, a month, and see if we get some positive movement here?
Yeah, I mean, I think let's see what we hear back in terms of whether there's any good outcomes from the conversation between staff and the developer in terms of something that might be something the board could, review the concept of and get comfortable with or not. Let's see. But do we want to time frame it? Do we want to say really we need to know and have that completed by a month?
Yeah, we can't let this just linger, So I think, let's put a timeline on it.
I wouldn't say have a hard and fast deadline. I think report back to you at the work session on the dialogues and the conversation. If we're making progress, then continue with that effort.
Okay.
That'd be my suggestion. And I think most developers are willing to work very quickly. It's usually they're the ones pushing it. So I think that we could probably get that meeting set up fairly quick.
Yeah, I would suggest that Mr. Goldthorpe and his company and the current owner meet with us as well, so everybody's on the same page.
Very good. Well, we'll take that as the key next step, and our workshop is on the 1st of June, Casey. So we'll hear back how that conversation has gone and whether it's going well on the 1st of June, and the board can decide if it wants to pursue any other courses of action at that time. Sound good?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right. Give me a second here to find where I put the agenda. So next item up is discussion and possible approval of the Boot Road Corridor Improvements Project, bid in coordination with East Goshen Township. And Casey, I believe you're on point for this update.
Yeah, I'm going to give some background. We have Jamie Graham on the phone on the call with Carroll Engineering to give some details on the project itself. But this is a project that's been in the works since 2008. Actually, it's that old. Through much coordination with East Goshen over the years, there's been a ton of PennDOT coordination. This is a project to improve traffic flow on Wilson Drive onto Boot Road to the 202 Boot Road intersection. This includes restriping of the bottleneck that occurs with UPS trucks, traffic from QVC, et cetera, that travels from West Goshen into East Goshen, and then around the curve on Boot Road to get out to 202. There are daily backups there, and also westbound on Boot Road coming from East Goshen. The other improvement includes a long sought after set of turning arrows at Green Hill and Boot Road. That's another bottleneck coming up Green Hill Road from Airport Road. Typically 10, 15, 20 cars will stack there during busy times to make the left to go west on Boot, because there is no traffic, there's no left turn arrow there either way, either north or south. So those are the major improvements. And again, we've been working on this since 2008 with much input from East Goshen and of course PennDOT as the final approver. So Jamie, if you'd like to just go over the project just from an engineering perspective and go through the bid results, if you would.
Sure, thanks. Good evening, everybody. He pretty much hit the key points on the project. The project runs from at the west side from Green Hill along Boot Road down to Wilson, and there's mill and overlay that goes past Wilson to Carriage. There are going to be the restriping, like Casey said, there's going to be 2 lanes. There's going to be a new through lane heading westbound. So there's going to, in the final condition, there will be 2 westbound through lanes. There's going to be a center left turn lane. And then there's going to be 1 eastbound lane as the eastbound through lane. And then there's signal improvements at Green Hill. That signal is actually coordinated with the 202 ramp signals. So there's timing for both of those signals that are going to be upgraded. Like Casey mentioned, for the north and south legs on Green Hill, currently there are unprotected left turns, and we added into the signals protected left turns and those green arrows. So there's going to be new signal heads in each of those directions. And then at Wilson, there's just some retiming efforts as well. I think that's it in a nutshell with the project. Sorry, let me just pull up the bid results. I did have it right in front of me. There were 3 bidders that bid on this project. The low bid was the Rocco Brothers Incorporated with a low bid of $335,737.85. Miko Constructors also bid with a bid of $391,558. And Roadcon Incorporated was the 3rd firm that bid, and they were at $409,941.50.
Thanks, Jamie. Any other comments, Jamie?
No, I'll let Casey speak about the recommendation, but we did recommend that the low bid be awarded this project.
Yeah, on West Goshen side, we're actually below budget with this project. We budgeted $175,000, and we're in the high 160s, I believe, for the project. We've used Duraco Brothers as low bidder before, and have a good working relationship with them. So we fully expect the project to come in on time and at or even below budget.
Casey, are East Goshen on board with their share of it at the same, the amount is budgeted and they're planning to spend it this year, or are they balking at all?
No, they really want this to happen, and they actually received a small amount of funding from Sunoco/Energy Transfer that for these road improvements, because there was at least one inadvertent return when Sunoco was doing their drilling on the East Goshen side. So they gave, I don't know what to use, donated, whatever, to East Goshen a certain amount of money to cover, because East Goshen told Sunoco that we were planning this project. So they have all of their funding in place in 2021.
Okay, thanks. Are there any other board questions for Casey or Jamie?
I'd like to make a motion we accept the bid.
Hang on,
I'm
Hugh.
sorry, John, go ahead. No, John, go ahead.
Clarification, the amount of the bid amount was $335,000. Is that going to be split evenly between East and West Goshen?
Well, the calculation is on the bid sheet that you have in front of you. There, West Goshen's amount is actually lower. It's not quite 50-50. It's probably 47-53, with East Goshen paying more, because we did add, because of that inadvertent return from Sunoco, we increased the scope of the project area in East Goshen. So they're paying a slightly higher percentage. It's not quite 50-50. We're on the low side.
Okay. I'm just curious, how was that percentage determined?
Strictly based on quantities through the engineering, with linear feet and everything else. So it's all scientifically based.
Okay. All right, that's all I had.
Casey, is the motion we're looking to make to approve the full amount tonight, or is it just for the West Goshen piece of the bill?
I would do the full amount. I would consider this just like our line striping bid. We are going to be billed individually based on the bid. So you can approve the entire thing, but our portion is only the West Goshen side.
Okay. Are there any other board questions?
Then,
hang on, Hugh. Any other questions? Okay, Hugh, go ahead.
I'll make that a motion then that we accept the Rocco bid.
Okay, is there a second for Hugh's motion?
Yeah, I'm going to second it.
Okay, so we have a first and we have a motion and a second to accept the Rocco Brothers bid at $335,737.85 for this project. Are there any final board comments or questions? Are there any public comments or questions?
Sean, this is Doug. Comment, please. With this project, Casey, was this the same project where on Boot Road some of the residents were going to lose the shoulder and they were very irate?
Yes.
And
Yes. Yeah, except we redesigned it so there is no loss of shoulder.
Oh, okay, then fine. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay. We addressed their concerns, and there is no detriment to the shoulder.
Okay, fine. That's great.
Does that mean, Casey, then they can put their trash toter and recycling toter off the curb and it won't be sitting on their grass, so to speak? Is that
Correct.
That's going to be possible, correct?
Absolutely. Yep. It'll be behind the fog line, and they'll have plenty of room.
Okay.
Yep. That was one of our major concerns to fix.
Very good. Any other public comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, we're ready to take a roll call vote on the motion. Ashley?
Yes.
John?
Aye.
Hugh?
Aye.
Robin?
Aye.
I vote yes. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank the board. This has been a long project, and I thank you all for voting for approval tonight. We'll start construction as soon as Duraco is able, so we should hopefully have this done by the end of summer.
Nice.
What, you mean like August timeframe, Casey, or September? What's the kind of schedule do you think for this?
Within the next 2 to 3 months. We have to work with PennDOT to ensure that their inspectors are available for the project. And it's going to be, I think, Jamie, is it 9 to 3 work every day due to rush hour?
Yes, they'll have to get on. Yep, get on at 9, get off at 3.
Okay, so that's going to slightly extend the project because we can only work 9 to 3 during daytime out of rush hour. But we should have this done in pretty quick order.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it, Casey.
You got it.
Okay, moving on to the next agenda item. It is item number 7, discussion of energy transfer, Boot Road pump station, noise issues affecting quality of life for residents. So I had asked Casey to put. Hello?
Mr. Chairman, can I be excused, please?
Certainly, Hugh. Thank you.
Thank you.
I asked Casey to put this on the agenda. You know, we've had some activity lately relative to trying to move forward with addressing what has become a persistent problem with noise. It is not in violation of our noise ordinance, but it is a harmonic at a frequency that is problematic for people. And it's been a constant irritation. And I asked Casey to give the board an update around what's been happening lately and where we are with it, and at least inform the board tonight, even if there is perhaps no additional actions required, but we'll see. So Casey, if you don't mind headlining the status of where we are and what's been going on.
Yeah, I just want to give a brief history as well. As you all know, Sunoco, now Energy Transfer, operates the Mariner 1, Mariner 2, and Mariner 2X lines running through West Goshen. Those lines run through the Boot Road pump station at Boot and 202. When Mariner 1 was brought online, I believe back in 2016, residents noticed almost immediately a harmonic hum that was coming from the pump station. Sunoco at the time, prior to its purchase by Energy Transfer, my recollection, they spent 9 months to a year with sound experts, sound consultants. They had sound meters set up 24 hours a day for almost that entire time. They discovered the problem was, I can't remember, a pump or something was making this harmonic humming noise. It did not violate our noise ordinance because it wasn't loud by decibels, but it was very irritating and a quality of life issue for our neighbors. After they discovered what the problem was, they fixed it. It was insulation and some other things that they did to the pump station, and the issue went away. Fast forward to Mariner 2 2X, we have the same type of problem where it's this harmonic hum that again, we've had Craig go up there and check with the decibel meter. It doesn't violate our noise ordinance per se, but it's a quality of life issue because this humming sound, and we have Walker Tompkins on the line, a neighbor there. He can best describe what it sounds like. I mean, the sound penetrates into homes. People can't open their doors and windows because the sound is, again, it's not loud, but it's very irritating. And to be honest, full disclosure, Energy Transfer, now the owner of Sunoco, has not been supportive. I'll use my words carefully. They have not, their investigations are they will send an employee up there, listen for a few minutes, and then they report back they hear nothing, which is a complete 180 from what Sunoco had done back in 16. So this has been going on for some time, many, many months. We have had no positive reaction from Energy Transfer to try and determine the problem, but the problem persists. As one more aside, well, a couple. Ernie Holling from Cato contacted Aqua on my behalf, and Aqua's employees, there's a tank, 2 tanks and a building behind the Boot Road pump station. They investigated and they found no noise emanating from their site, so that knocked out Aqua as a noise source. So we're back to square one with Energy Transfer. And I also made contact, if the board's familiar with the recent settlement agreement that the Chester County DA's office with Energy Transfer about nuisances, and it more meant about the inadvertent returns that have been occurring, Marsh Creek and everything else all over the county. I contacted the DA's office, and they are investigating this noise issue now as a nuisance in possible violation of the settlement agreement on nuisances. So we have that avenue running as well. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. We work at it, almost every day with Energy Transfer. They're just not helpful. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, thanks, Casey. I mean, I went over with Walker and took a little walk around the particular perimeter of the property. It's undoubtedly coming from the pumping operation and the piping associated with that. It's nothing to do with aqua. As you walk around, you can actually directionally point to where it's coming from. Obviously, it's going to be the kind of noise that at certain weather conditions and times of day, it's going to be much more noticeable than others, depending on wind direction and depending on where you live, depending on how much traffic is on Boot Road. But you can see how, you know, 24/7, it always being there, and it, you know, on a Sunday morning, you're going to hear it loud and clear, and, you know, Monday rush hour, maybe not as much, but it's clearly something that is persistent and a nuisance. And, you know, in my opinion, we should be trying to pursue any avenues we can to get them to take it seriously. Now, undoubtedly, you know, in my opinion, you know, maybe mitigating an 8-inch line with the same problem is, you know, different order of magnitude when you've got, you know, bigger pumps or whatever else on the larger lines that are there. But the basic engineering solution or premise of what was done before should surely be something that could be applied again. So I don't understand the hesitancy, and, you know, I'm for trying to find either a way forward with this latest opportunity through using this nuisance approach, or whether there's anything specific that West Goshen could consider. You know, I'd like the board to maybe entertain that as well. So that's my thoughts. Walker, do you want to add any specific commentary from yourself as a resident in that area?
Yes, it is a major annoyance. If you are up against the pump station, you know, it's 24/7, very annoying harmonics. We've also done some research and found that this type of harmonic, you know, in a pump and in repurposed lines can also be dangerous. I think I passed that report to Casey. But if the board would, I would like to, we, the residents, would like to see you write a formal letter to Sunoco, you know, asking them to fix the problem. I think so far we've just had a few emails, and our friends at Sunoco just, you know, tend to ignore you. The other issue is it possible to change our noise ordinance so that it would include something harmonics like this? Now I realize we're passing something after the fact, but I'm also concerned that this sort of thing might happen with somebody's geothermal pumps or elsewhere in the township, and I look at it as one, we can notify Sunoco that we have this ordinance now, and it may also help other residents in the future. The last piece to this is if we pass the ordinance, Josh Maxwell, who's one of the county commissioners, has also said that he would send a letter to Sunoco expressing his displeasure with their, you know, damaging the quality of life in this section of the township.
Thank you, Walker. So questions from the board on what you've heard for either Casey or the residents, or thoughts you want to share?
Sure. Robin, do you want to go first, or John?
I was just going to ask about the village of Shannon. Are they too far away to also have any of this harmonic issues?
Yes.
Have they come forward with concern as well?
They're too far away. It's mostly, I'm roughly 500 feet from the station.
Yeah.
So you're probably looking at 30 or 40 homes that are directly affected by it. I have 3 neighbors in Hamlet Hill that are really adversely affected. And then if you go along Mary Jane Lane, all those people are impacted by it.
Yeah, I would concur with Walker.
So has the township not done anything to date to reach out to Sunoco about this specific problem?
But we've been talking to Sunoco for 14 months.
About
Absolutely.
this humming noise?
As soon as we started getting reports from Walker's neighborhood, we were in constant contact. And we were hopeful they were going to take the same responsible action that Sunoco did back in 16, but they just have Energy Transfer is a different company. They just they won't even return emails to the county emergency management team. So it's a bigger problem than just us.
No, I know. So that's my real concern, is that I feel like pursuing Sunoco over these issues has really failed so miserably by many different townships in the past. Not to say that we shouldn't do anything. I would absolutely write a letter from the board to Sunoco. I can't promise that that's going to be what fixes the problem. I agree. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that the DA getting involved, and I do recall what you're talking about, Casey. I think that route is going to be helpful. Mm-hmm. And so I would encourage the board maybe to get together and see if we can reach out to the DA's office and sort of join our forces, maybe with the county commissioners and the DA's office, to see if we can pursue this as more of a team effort.
Yeah, I mean, that's underway. I mean, that was underway as of this morning. With the DA's office. So I'm supposed to get a call back from the DA early next week. They were going to reach out directly to Sunoco's general counsel and give them the lay of the land with this complaint. I was very detailed in my report to them. So with that settlement agreement, it specifically talked about quality of life issues and nuisances. So we're back to that nuisance question. And this is definitely a nuisance for our neighborhood.
I think it would be helpful if we formally notify Energy Transfer that you're unhappy and we're taking action. And we're the one township that, because of our early action, and Casey was part of this, we have an agreement with Sunoco that states that they can't build any other facilities in the township.
Yep.
And lo and behold, they tried to. And I think it was because we achieved this because we were proactive. We engaged both attorneys from the resident side and from the township side. And though it wasn't a home run, we got a triple out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think neighbors are going to start notifying the police when we start to hear the noises again. When we get the explosion, you get the boom, so that we get better documentation.
Yep.
So Casey, two thoughts here. One is, you feel right now you have in progress the trying to address this through the DA's office. Is there any particular support you need from the board at this point on that one?
Not at all. Not at all. And I would recommend that just give me another week or so to hear back from the DA's office, and I will individually report to you what they said. And then I would suggest, once we have that information from the DA's office, then I write a letter to ET.
That was my second question. So once we get a little bit better understanding as to what that way forward is with the DA's office, we can then, to Walker's point, specifically write from West Goshen Township a letter to Energy Transfer stating that this nuisance factor that's persisted, you can relate the history of trying to contact them and work with them on fixing it like they fixed the original Mariner 1. We've seen no progress, and at this point we are considering this. We're working with the district attorney to manage the solution that we think is needed for this.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
we would do the letter in a couple of weeks then.
Correct. I would suggest that be the method at this point.
Okay. Is the board satisfied with that approach?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's fine. And this letter, when we get to that point, I would stress not only what they did in 2016 and address the problem, but also say that we're looking for ET to be a good neighbor here.
Yep.
And stress that concept that I think they want, or they at least are presenting themselves, they're willing to be a good neighbor. Well, now you're kind of like saying, well, prove it. Now you have a chance to do it. Be a good neighbor here. and do what you did, from 2016 and just replicate those efforts again.
I guess my only other point, excuse me, is there any chance of amending the noise ordinance?
Yeah, I actually wanted to address that as well. Ernie Halling at Cato, I have not had a chance to review it. I had a very long discussion with him about this issue, and he had some type of model ordinance, I think from another state. Now, obviously, its applicability to Pennsylvania, we'd have to investigate it with Kristen. It addresses noise in general, which we have currently on a decibel level, but it also addresses these nuisance harmonic noise issues as well that aren't necessarily decibel problems, but that irritating whine that you'll hear. So I want to review that with Kristen and see if it's applicable to Pennsylvania law, and we'll report back as well on that.
So Casey, why don't we do this? Why don't we have this again on our workshop agenda in 2 weeks? Hopefully you'll have got the conversation completed with the DA.
Yep.
You'll have had a chance to talk with Kristen around what we can do in Pennsylvania relative to a nuisance noise that isn't a decibel related issue. And we can, if you've drafted a letter or something, we can approve it as well at that meeting to send to Energy Transfer. Okay?
Very good. Thank you. Yep.
Is there any other public comments on what you've heard the board discuss about this issue?
Sean, this is Doug. Comment, please.
Go ahead.
Sean, is this sound actually coming through the air, or is it a ground vibration? The reason I ask is, can it be fixed by Energy Transfer erecting a structure around the pumping station that's energy absorbing, and would that fix it?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's through the air, Doug. It's not, it doesn't come through the ground. There are issues related to enclosures around these kind of pumps, and hazards that could create itself in terms of flammable atmospheres and things in the event of small leaks, etc. So we don't want to dictate any engineering solutions, but our main emphasis here would be, look, you've solved the problem once on the smaller line. You need to investigate thoroughly and come up with the same type of solutions on now that you've got more equipment working there. So I think we just leave it to them and put the ball in their court.
Might be just a matter of changing settings on pumps, what RPMs they run, things like that. Just simple as that. Could be, and they could still get the same fluid transfer rate that they need. So it could be a simple thing, but we'll see.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Is there anyone else with a comment or question? Very good. Well, thank you, everyone, for that discussion. We'll move on to the next agenda item, which is number 8, discussion of COVID-19 Recovery Act funding and uses of those funds for township needs. So,
excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I'm back.
Welcome back, Hugh. Glad to have you back. Casey, do you want to describe right now what you understand the situation to be, both with the receipt, when we can expect to receive the money? I believe we had a board discussion about creating a separate account for it so we can clearly delineate it and track its use over time for any auditing requirements, and what you believe these funds could be used for in terms of probably capital investments at the township.
Certainly. Included in your packet and on the website, on the township website, was a flyer that was produced by the Treasury Department, the Federal Treasury Department. This is the latest COVID, what they're calling the Recovery Act funds. It's a series of payments to municipalities, counties, states for various expenses. The major uses are for COVID-related expenses, so mitigation efforts, and also what we'd look at it for, if I can speak for the board, would be for infrastructure. We're allowed to spend it on stormwater, sanitary sewer, and other infrastructure improvements. Another use of the funding, which we don't qualify for because we were not, the township, knock on wood, was not hit with a major economic downfall, was to replace revenue that if your tax base went away or you suffered some type of economic loss as a township, you could use that money to essentially refund yourself. But West Goshen, again, thank goodness, in the greater Chester County area, we did not see those horrible economic effects this round with COVID. So what the board has discussed before spending this money, the township's been allotted $2.2 million. Now the schedule for release of those funds, we're not going to get a check in the mail from the Fed. The money is going to be distributed to the states and then distributed individually to townships, most likely through an ACH transfer, wire transfer. We still don't know the date of this happening. I know the federal legislation said within 60 days of the signing of the bill or whatever, but we're past 60 days and we don't know when the money's coming yet. It's going to come in two chunks, two tranches, as they say. It's 50% and 50%, so we'll get $1.1 million soon. And the second will be 1 calendar year away from that first deposit. The money has to be encumbered, meaning contracts let, by December 31st, 2024, with the construction of the whatever project that you're building has to be completed by December 31st, 2026. So we have some time. We have 5 years to spend the money. And it's just up to the board as to what you want to spend this money on for infrastructure. Now we'll be audited two ways. The federal Department of Treasury will audit us on the use of the funds, and also our township third-party auditors. Anytime we expend funds, they will audit us as well. So we'll have 2 layers of audit for those funds. And as the board suggested, we will set up that money in a separate TD bank account, which we will then transfer for payments. But if the board decides to spend the money on infrastructure, there'll be contractor payments and that's it. So it'll be very easy to track with a relatively small number of checks to audit the funds. So that's in a nutshell.
Thanks, Casey. Well, one question I have for you and Rick is, so as part of our stormwater permit compliance, we'd identified projects that we needed to do, I believe within a 5-year period of receiving the permit. So we know what these projects are, and we have a kind of certainly a ballpark estimate of the cost of them. Can we use these funds to pay for those projects since they were already known and identified, or do these funds have to be for as yet unknown or unspecified or undesigned projects?
Yeah, I attended the PSATS webinar last Friday, which was very informative. They had 5 or 6 members of PSAT staff on the line. The projects do not have to be shovel ready. And one of the gentlemen actually said it's probably better to start with a project that you haven't even started designing yet, so you know the current cost of that project. But if you do have a project that's been designed, it's on the books, ready to go, you can spend the money on that as well. So it can be not even in design, but a theoretical project, and it also can be a shovel-ready project.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, just in my opinion and sharing with the board, obviously we know we have several stormwater projects, both that are, as part of our permit compliance. We know we have projects that we needed to address related to our corrugated metal pipe in various neighborhoods. That's an issue. Some we've fixed already and some that's still to go. And we know we have further work in our sewer system with our 10-year capital improvement plan. So, in my opinion, we will certainly have worthy projects to use this money for. And once we've received it and got it in an account, we can then, as part of our budgeting process, have the debate around how specifically to allocate it to a certain project. So those are my thoughts. Is there anything else a board member would like to comment or share? Okay.
Good.
All right, thanks, Casey.
Absolutely.
Next agenda item is number 9, discussion and possible approval of resolution 12-2021, police department document destruction. Casey.
Yeah, this is just our typical housekeeping item. Cindy Haldeman of the police department usually does this once or twice a year. It's just various police documents that, per the museum, Pennsylvania Museum and Historic Commission schedule of records retention, which we follow to the letter. She supplied that list to you for approval tonight for destruction.
Are there any board questions about the list that's been provided? And I'll start it off with Chief Carroll. Have you reviewed the list and looks okay and is typical to you?
Yes, it looks typical, something we do every year.
Thank you. Board member questions or comments?
I'll make the motion that we go ahead with the destruction of those records.
Thank you, Hugh. Hugh's made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, John. Any final questions from the board? Are there any public comments or questions?
Sean, this is Doug. Does that include any accident reports that include fatalities?
I don't believe so from the list. It's only accident reports that are for non-fatal. Is that correct,
Okay.
Casey?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other public comments, questions? Hearing none, let's take a roll call vote. Ashley?
Yeah.
John?
Aye.
Hugh?
Aye.
Robin?
Aye.
I vote yes. Thank you. Okay, we're up to item number 10, which is reports for the month of April 2021. We start off with the police report presented by Chief Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in the month of April 2021, the police department responded to 2,127 calls for service. Of those, 50 were alarms and 5 were valid alarms. We responded to 13 reportable accidents and 19 non-reportable accidents, and we drove a total of 16,305 miles. Some of the areas we concentrated our traffic enforcement on were Green Hill Avenue, Snyder Avenue, Burke Road, North 5 Points Road, Westchester Pike, Rosary Lane, Jones Lane, South High Street, and Taylor's Mill Road. In the area of career development outside our normal monthly trainings, we had officers, all of our officers attended ethics and law enforcement training this month. Sergeant Holman attended basic hostage negotiation training. Two of our new officers, Officer Burnt and Officer Needham, attended de-escalation training. Sergeant Taylor and Officer Kennett attended basic school resource officer training. Captain D'Amidio virtually attended the DUI conference. And Officers Boyle, Riley, and Story attended acting and rank training, which is a low-level supervisory school. Sergeant Grandizio continued his work as a certified ERE instructor, and Officer Needham attended a low-light shooting course. That's the report from the police department. I have something extra, but if there's any questions on that, I certainly can take them first.
Just one quick question from me, Chief. So if we'd had service calls from the Quality Inn, where would they be grouped on the report, the monthly report? Where would I see them? Even if they're included with others, but where do they add to the total on the report somewhere?
They would be reports across the board. They wouldn't be in one section.
Okay.
I do a separate query on our reports to give you the exact numbers from that address, but we get virtually every kind of call there is at the Quality Inn.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other board member questions for Chief? Okay, Chief, you had something else you wish to report on?
Yes, just something to throw out to the board and get your reaction on. So we became aware a couple months ago of a Pennsylvania Superior Court decision that allows police departments that do it for certain reasons to not allow videotaping in the police lobby. Some of the reasons that are allowable and that we experience here are the fact that we have protected information inside our dispatch area, which is right through that glass window, information that's not allowed for the public to see without specific certifications. We conduct interviews of all kinds of people in all kinds of situations, and in a separate area of the lobby up front, there's a table where we conduct interviews. We also have officers from other departments, undercover and normal officers, coming in and out of the lobby to access our building, as well as people who are assisting the police department and wish to do so anonymously will come in through the lobby. So in order to protect the rights of all these people, we would like to post the police lobby as no videotaping of any kind by anyone without specific permission from an officer who is in attendance. This was, I talked to Casey about this. We got an opinion from Mike Galey, who wrote the wording that's going to go into the policy to affect this, if of course the board isn't against it.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Board thoughts and comments?
Yeah, I'll just weigh in here. Ashley and I had a monthly meeting with Chief Carroll before our meeting tonight, and we discussed this, and we felt it was reasonable. It's something that needed to be brought up to the board, though, just they're aware of it. It'd be a matter of, if the board did agree with this policy, that there would be signage in the lobby indicating that videotaping was not allowed, just that the general public would be aware of it. So, but otherwise, citing law concerning the sensitivity of the equipment that could be within the lobby or seen through the lobby window, this would seem to be warranted.
Chief, there is a security camera in that lobby, right? You do have a recording of people coming and going in there.
Yes, a video recording.
Yeah. Any other board comments or questions for Chief Carroll?
Well, not on this issue, but I just want to bring up a couple of items, Sean.
Okay, well, let's see if we can just. So, is there a board consensus that we do not object to the posting of a no video recording signage for the police lobby? Is there anyone who is opposed to that? I don't see Hugh here. Is he left, Casey?
Yeah, he dropped off about 30 seconds ago. I don't see him. I'm not sure what's going on.
Let's see if he rejoins, and I'll ask the question again.
Okay.
So, John, go ahead with your other comments.
There was a couple of things that I just want to bring up. Chief, could you tell us about this Tulsa Y vehicle that's been dropped off there at the police department for to be checked out?
Yes.
How does it perform, and what is it? What do you think?
I've had some contacts with a representative from the Tesla dealer in Devon. They've been very hospitable in letting us test out a Model Y, which would be probably the ideal model of the Tesla if we were to go that route, that could be used for a police vehicle. So we've had it since Monday. Many of our officers have had the opportunity to drive it. It seems performance-wise to meet everything that our current police vehicles would meet. There's still going to be some questions moving forward in outfitting as a police vehicle. So we're going to do a little more study on what possible savings it could amount. Obviously, the cost of the car from the beginning would be more than a Ford. So we want to project out what kind of savings we could expect, and certainly highlight the fact that it's clean. It would be a clean energy solution. We think we could start with something like this in a non-patrol vehicle, but one of the vehicles in the fleet that doesn't do patrol. See how it performs with the limited amount of equipment that we put in it before we step it up to a full patrol vehicle. But that would be the ultimate goal.
If the fleet did move towards electric vehicles, do you anticipate that the lifespan of that vehicle would be longer than the typical gasoline-driven vehicle?
So in the patrol fashion, I don't know. I wouldn't want to throw a guess at that without more information. But in the detective or administrative uses, I think it would. I think that's something that would be kept around a lot longer. Specifically with the Teslas, they warranty their batteries for I think it's 8 or 10 years and 120,000. I think it's 10 years and 120,000 miles, which is beyond what a drivetrain in a normal gasoline engine would go.
Right. Okay.
So, Chief, on that one, are we looking at kind of reviewing our 2022 police vehicle requirements and seeing if there's a fit here for a potential Tesla vehicle, or have you already done that and we don't have that opportunity in the short term? What are you thinking?
So with budgets approaching, I will be prepared to answer that question. From the way it looks right now, we will be replacing at least one vehicle that could fill, and one non-patrol vehicle next year, as long as nothing changes between now and budget. So it could fill a role. I just want to be able to, with the cost, be able to project that a little bit to see how quickly we could recoup that extra money.
Yeah. Of course, I'm sure Ford are, keen to retain their, the fact that they're often, a selection of many police departments, so they can't be far behind in terms of a comparable vehicle. So you need to make sure you keep your eye on what their offerings are too.
So I have, and I will be reaching out to them before any decisions are made. They do have something comparable.
Great.
If I could just segue from that, as we begin to make this move to the vehicle fleet of the township becoming electric vehicle, we're going to have to take a look at building in the infrastructure to support that. Right now, we have that one EV charging station outside the facilities building, which is okay for one vehicle, but if we're going to start looking at buying more of the fleet to be electric vehicles, we're going to have a much more robust charging system infrastructure. So that's something else we're going to have to think about as we move down this path.
Hey, that's a good idea. John, you've made me think. Casey, could we use some of this American Recovery Act money to do an engineering study of the power requirements and layout for charging at a much bigger scale at the township complex? Could we use some of this 2.2 million, in the next 6-12 months to do a detailed assessment of power requirements and how this layout would look? Is that possible, or is infrastructure not include that?
No, that would definitely include it. And I know, Ashley, the Sustainability Committee is looking at those off the grid EV chargers with the solar panels. They're 60 grand a piece, but that is another piece of infrastructure that would be applicable. Now, obviously, we would contact the Treasury Department or whomever we need to get approval. We just wouldn't spend the money without knowing for sure, but we would get some type of letter of approval. But I believe that would be an acceptable cost. Absolutely.
Great.
Yeah, that's exactly what came to my mind too, Casey.
Yep, good.
Yeah, I would definitely check with them. I thought those infrastructure projects would like just water, stormwater, and sewer. But anyway, if you check with them, they'll tell us definitely whether it would be okay to use it or not, for sure. The other thing I just wanted to bring up was on May the 6th, Ashley and I both attended an event at the Milestones that Chief Carroll called. I guess, well, Chief, I'll let you describe what it is, but it's like what I would call a Citizens Advisory Committee. It's a group of individuals from the community that's they're having discussions ongoing with Chief Carroll and his command staff about the ways to better engage with the community, be more sensitized to concerns of the community, particularly people of color and people of all faiths. So, Chief, maybe if you could fill us in a little bit more about what happened then and also what's being planned for the future.
Sure. So this was a continuing conversation of meetings we've had several times in the past with different members of the community with interest in the area of transparency and racial equity. We invited some new people to this one as we keep expanding. One of the things we got out of our previous meetings was the request that we be able to show some data as it pertains to racial equity in the police in West Goshen Township. So we had started collecting that data in January of this year, and that was the first public, if you will, unveiling of the data we collected. We discussed what we thought it said, the input from people in the meeting, what they thought it said, and ways to move forward. And we also started hatching, I think, the idea of this police advisory board and the different functions they perform. So we're still working on the fine tuning what that board will do, but it's well on its way.
Very good. Thank you. Interesting.
Yep.
John, do you have any more comments or questions?
Well, I just want to, again, I want the chief to kind of just praise for his efforts here. He's reinstituting the Coffee with the Cop program and also the gumshoe camp program this summer. And why don't you talk about what that's all about?
Sure. So we tested out this gumshoe camp for 1 week in the summer of 2019, because obviously the summer of 2020, we weren't able to do it. We received really, really good reviews. In fact, most of the calls we got were questions on why someone's child couldn't attend the first one. So we're going to run this camp 4 times this summer. So 4 separate weeks. All of them, I believe, are filled up already. And we're speaking with the school district about the possibility of slightly expanding each week to get a couple more students in. But the camp is for fourth graders. It's kind of their first look at what police do. They get to learn the different expertises that we use to solve crime, and at the end, they get an opportunity to use what they learned to solve a crime that's been given to them.
Wish I was a fourth grader.
Me too.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's a great concept. I mean, what it does, it gives folks an idea that the police are here, not to beat you over the head or arrest you or whatever, or shoot you, but they're here to be servants to the community. And I think that's a great effort on the part of the chief and the department in pursuing that. And starting with people who are young, I think it gives them that sense of confidence that the police are not the enemy, but they are here to serve the community, and they really are the guardians of our civilization. And we hold them to high standards, and people should be aware of their capabilities and their strengths, but also their limitations as well. So I think these are all great efforts that we're engaging with the police department, and we'll continue to do so, in the months and the years, I hope, ahead.
I agree.
I see Hugh. Are you back, Hugh, with us? Can you hear me?
Yes, I got you.
Okay. Just after you dropped off, we were discussing the request of the chief, board support for a no videotaping policy and signage for the lobby of the police building. And I was asking the board if we all supported that, so we could give the chief the direction he needs. So are you in support of a no videotape policy for the lobby area by the public?
To not tape it?
For the public to not be prohibited from videotaping in that lobby area. There is a security camera of the police department, but to prohibit public videotaping in that space and have signage to that effect.
Yeah, it's fine by me. I don't have any problems with it.
I shortchanged the rationale for it. Maybe, Chief, if you don't mind, just giving the headlines again as to why you think this is an appropriate policy.
Sure. The reasons are that the protected information right inside the dispatch area, the interviews of victims and complainants that we conduct in a different part of the lobby, but that is within earshot, and the different people coming and going from the station that wouldn't want to be known to the public at large that they were coming and going from the station.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that at all. If the chief says it's okay by me, and same way with being okay with the solicitor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So thanks, Hugh. We heard before from the rest of the board, I believe, that was supportive of the policy. Is there anyone who has an objection to it? Otherwise, I'm going to suggest that we have a board direction for the chief to implement.
Do you need a motion to the effect?
Well, we can do that. It seems like it might be a good idea to formally approve it. So let's take that approach. Do we have a motion to approve no videotaping by the public policy for the lobby of the police building?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Hugh. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, John. I don't think there's any more board questions or comments. So if there is any member of the public that would like to speak on it now that we have a motion.
This is Doug. I would be in agreement.
Thanks, Doug. Okay, let's take a quick roll call vote. Ashley?
Yes.
John?
Aye.
Hugh?
Aye.
Robin?
Aye.
I vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that was it for the police report. Thank you very much, Chief Carroll. Very insightful and informative as usual. So item number 11 on the agenda is Board of Supervisors announcements. Ashley, do you have any announcements this evening?
Yeah, just a couple little announcements. Number one, I got to check out the Tesla, and it's really, really cool. Not too huge of an announcement, but I had to share it. The other announcement is that our Arbor Day event went really well. I probably shared that at the workshop meeting, but it went really well. We had, good attendance. It was covered in the Daily Local, which is great. As far as Tree City goes for the Sustainability Committee, so we're still pursuing that. And we've achieved 2 of the 4 standards so far. And so one of the things that we talked about at the last meeting was more about the tree ordinance and the tree board. So you know that there's a standard that talks about who's going to be legally responsible for the trees, and we discussed whatever options might come down the road of us having a tree board and who would be in that tree board and whether the sustainability could be that tree board. So we're kind of working on that. And the other thing that we discussed in that meeting was about, sorry, hang on one second. It was about, all right, I lost it. Anyway, we're working on Tree City. I think that's all I have to share tonight.
Thanks, Ashley. John, any announcements?
I just would announce that I'm continuing to take attendance at the PSAT Spring Conference online sessions, leading to a graduate certificate in the Pennsylvania Municipal Government Program. Should be pretty well along the way to completing that, I hope, by the end of the summer. Also, just would announce that along with Ashley and with Chief Carroll, Representative Diane Herron, representatives from Carolyn Committer's office and Christy Houlihan's office. So we attended an end of Ramadan celebration on May the 13th. It was very well attended, maybe about 100 people there or so. It was good to meet out there with these folks. The only problem I had with it was at the East Goshen Park. And I told them I think we need to have this at the West Goshen Community Park next year. So, but otherwise it was a lot of fun. That's all I have.
Thanks, John. Hugh, do you have any announcements?
I do. This weekend, Saturday specifically, is the Antique Car Show at off of Lawrence Drive at the back end of our park, of the community park. And we've had an excellent response so far. I'm hoping to get more participation from our residents. We have a few that are signed up, but I would like to see more. Spectators are free, so I'd invite everybody to come see the cars.
You have to sign up, Hugh, do you have to sign up in advance, or can you just show up on the day if you have time?
No, you can just come in.
Okay.
So
anyhow,
Hugh,
hello?
Hugh, how many of your cars are you putting into your antique show?
Am I personally?
Yeah, I thought you usually go to them and then you actually bring some cars.
I'll put 2 of my cars in there. But we expect somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 to 80. So it'll be a nice variation and a nice selection.
Okay, maybe other announcements, Hugh?
No, that's it. I'm done.
Thank you. Robin?
Yeah, the only thing I'm working on right now is with the Historical Commission, trying to set up a process for engaging with residents who may have some interest in supporting history of their own very old homes, if they have history about that. It's something that we have not really kicked off yet, but it's something that we're going to try to start working on so that we have something other than an ordinance to incent residents who have these very old homes and possibly have historical information about them, so that we can put some kind of, what I'm considering it is sort of like a walk of history throughout West Goshen, because so many different properties over I don't know, from probably the late 1800s into the early 1900s. There's still a lot of those homes still standing and in good condition. So it's something that's kind of a pet project for me because I really enjoy, I grew up in an old house and really enjoy being in sort of that historical period. And our meeting is every third Thursday of the month. So people are welcome to come and join right now. I don't know what we do from a virtual standpoint, but I guess in June we'll end up being able to have those meetings in person. Is that correct, Casey?
That's the choice of the commission.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Thank you, Robin. I just have a couple of things. First of all, I'm sorry I couldn't attend the Arbor Day celebration, Ashley. I was hoping to do that, and then I ended up actually being out of town that weekend. So sorry I missed it. The board had an executive session to discuss personnel matters on May the 14th. And my only other announcement is the Sewer Authority has progressed its work with its financial modeling around its 10-year capital improvement plan. This model is quite complex. It looks at all the sources of revenue. It looks at the projected expenses. It looks at the sources of funding that comes in from other municipalities, both for operational costs and for the capital costs. And it projects estimated costs of projects that we know we need to do over the next 10 years. And it has been kind of tested between our engineer and our plant superintendent as to the prioritization of these projects. And it's in pretty good shape. The Sewer Authority members are individually reviewing it now. We'll have another discussion at the June meeting. But what we would like to do is to have a joint meeting of the Board of Supervisors and the Sewer Authority, a public session to discuss the model, discuss what it's telling us, look at various options and scenarios about what funding is required, and to do that in a special public meeting, probably towards the end of July or early August, because we really want to have this conversation be done so we're informed as a board and we can take into consideration as we look at the 2022 budget and beyond what makes most sense from a financial perspective. So I just wanted to share that is an intention to try to schedule a meeting. And what we might do is just get some kind of basic calendar planning done around board availability for a kind of last 2 weeks in July, first 2 weeks in August time period, as best you know now. So that if you're away for 1 or 2 weeks, we kind of get an early view as to what that is, so we can maybe select a meeting date sooner rather than trying to scramble at the last minute and put something together. So just a heads up for now, and I'll work with Casey and Sewer Authority members to try to pull a little planning calendar together so we get that an early scheduled event, hopefully. So that was it from me. Next item on the agenda is Township Manager announcements.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to discuss tonight with the board is the possible resumption of in-person meetings for the board. Kristen and I have been discussing the various aspects of, Governor Wolf's emergency order expiring, if that happens, what the township's responsibility is to have public meetings again, given the vaccination rates. So I just wanted to see what the board's inclination was for June 1st, the mid-June meeting. We would have to, in order to make everybody feel comfortable upstairs, vaccinated or not, masks would obviously be required, and we would still distance people upstairs just to make everybody feel comfortable. Does the board have any thoughts on going back to in person?
So I'll open it up to the other board members first. Obviously, I have some thoughts, but I'd like to hear from everybody.
I think that it would be great for us to be able to have in-person meetings, even if it meant that we'd have to be structuring the distancing, because I think one of the things that we've all missed over the last year and a half is being able to be engaged with our residents in a real, true, personal connection. It's very difficult, I think, on the virtual meetings to kind of keep up with who's talking and what's being discussed. And I would love to see that we go back to it in a safe way. I was looking at the room the other day and I saw how everything was socially spaced. We have plenty of room to add more. So I think we have an adequate space to be able to utilize it. But I also think it's really important for them to be able to see their elected officials on a regular basis, because that creates a relationship that we haven't been able to have because we've been on virtual.
Okay, thanks, Robin. Other thoughts?
I think it's a good idea.
Thank you, Hugh.
Yep, I think we should go back to in person. I just have a question. So because, I mean, the CDC basically said you don't have to wear masks or socially distance indoors if you're vaccinated. I'm not challenging the idea of wearing masks indoors. I'm just wondering what the rationale is behind that, continuing the practice of masking.
Well, it's up to the individual property owner. Obviously, if you go into a business, it would be the board's discretion. If you don't want anybody to wear masks, that's the board's prerogative. We would make that announcement at the start of the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, obviously people are I feel like they're gonna do what they're comfortable doing, and people should. I mean, I don't know. What does the board think about that requirement?
Well, we just had an election day today, which I was over at the township building. There's some people who wear masks and other people who weren't. And there was a fair amount of traffic coming in and out, certainly much more than what would entail having a township meeting. So people are already starting to interact with one another.
Casey, what is the status of the building being open for public to come into, the lobby, pay a bill, meet with someone? What is our current practice? Where are we right now? What's our thinking?
Yeah, we're still under the practice we've been using for, since COVID started. We have the front vestibule service counter. For the election, we actually moved it back to the inner doors so people could have free access to the upstairs. But the CDC just changed their guidance. We're at about 95% vaccinated at the township. We still have some people who just got their second shot or getting their second shot in the next day or two. So we have a couple of weeks where we're kind of in between with those employees who still have to face the public who aren't fully vaccinated yet. So I'd still want to keep that vestibule where it is for probably the next 3 weeks, just to ensure that everybody's fully vaccinated for the employees. But once that happens, we'll probably open back up relatively normally.
So you're thinking it would maybe still be the end of the first week in June before you'd be normal operation in terms of public access into the building?
Yeah, and I'd probably push that to like mid-June, maybe June 15th, 16th, whatever that Monday would be, just to ensure that everybody has gotten their shots.
Okay. I support obviously having the board meetings held in public again. I'm open as to whether we, feel there's a need to have people wear masks. Obviously I see in public now it's a personal choice. So, if we're going to have people and we're going to be talking to them and mingling with them, it seems like, if a person wants to keep a mask on as an individual choice, that's fine. If they don't, you either decide to speak with them or not, depending on your personal choice. So I don't think we should have a mask mandate if we're going to resume the public meetings in person. Those are my thoughts.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
you need to give
I would
Casey
agree.
direction.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I agree. I just when are we talking about starting in-person meetings there? We talking about the beginning of June, or are we going to wait to the middle of June before we start doing that?
Well, the sewer authority voted to hold their June 2nd meeting in person, but we don't get many people from the public there other than Doug. So, you know, it was a low risk exercise. We're getting together to do a plant tour on a project status update beforehand anyway. So we agreed to hold it in person on June 2nd. I am okay with June 1st for the board, even though, you know, having heard from Casey, he won't have the township building opened up until a couple of weeks later. But again, you know, if there's a strong reason why any of the board members feel we should wait till the regular meeting, since, you know, June 1st is right after the relaxation from Governor Wolf, then I'm okay with that too.
Yeah, I think we should do June 1st in the building.
Okay.
I agree.
Hughes, okay. So I think that's it, Casey. We had just agreed as a board we'll go with June 1st and set the chairs up socially distanced. No mask mandate. If people want to choose to wear a mask, that's obviously fine.
Okay, good. Yeah, I will just need to advertise that we're going from virtual to in person. Very good. Thank you.
Casey, I'm just curious, the other townships, what are they doing? I know you talk to them all the time.
Yeah.
What's the borough doing? Are they starting in-person meetings now too?
No, we had our monthly managers meeting this morning actually, and I don't know of a one that's going back to in-person meetings this soon. Some are thinking July, maybe August.
Really?
They're still digesting the CDC's requirements, or the listing of requirements. And a couple of them actually said they get more public participation now doing virtual meetings than they ever have with public meetings. So their elected officials are sticking with virtual for now.
There are some, John, that have been doing live
Yeah.
with social distant. A couple of my clients, 3 or 4 of my clients have been doing live for a while, but they don't get nearly the public attendance. And they're, for example, West Bradford's been working out of their fire department, where it's a larger room.
Yeah, I think our attendance is less with virtual meetings than it was when we were in person. I don't know why. I just feel that I don't have any data. It's just, you know, looking at the meeting tonight, we just don't have that many members here. And routinely, we'd have a dozen or more members of the public if it was in person in years past. I mean, I feel okay to be a leader. Well, if that's what it is for the Goshens or whatever, we'll go with our plan. We've certainly got the room to accommodate some spacing.
We do. Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Okay, agenda item number 13, Township Engineers Report. Rick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going with the stormwater projects first. Ravens Lane Stormwater Project, all the piping work is now complete. We're in the process of doing restoration, including curb repair. We will be paving Eagle, weather permitting, on Wednesday and Thursday this week, and we're in the process of compiling a punch list to finalize the project. Pine Valley Circle project, which is similar in nature, stormwater pipe replacement and the basin retrofit. We're finalizing those plans now and working on getting that information out to the public and the residents who are affected in the very near future. Regarding Greystone, the emergency access road to North Hills was completed last week, and restoration of the stone arch bridge on that emergency access is underway now. And when that's done, all of the emergency access road work will be complete. And housing construction continues as usual with a very high volume of construction permits ensuing. If anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Questions for Rick?
Rick, when do you think the Pine Valley Circle project is going to get started? Any timeline on that? Any projected timeline?
Well, we have to go out to bid. I think we're probably going to be able to go out to bid, I would say, within about the next month.
Yep.
So when are you thinking this project might actually get started into the ground? Maybe towards the end of the summer? Are we talking, or middle of the summer?
It should certainly be able to start by then, yeah. But we don't have a firm schedule yet until we get the project bid,
Right.
get a schedule from the contractor. So I really can't give you a firm time frame at this point, but certainly I think it's reasonable to expect construction to start sometime during the summer and hopefully be done before winter.
Yeah. Now, what's the plan as far as engaging with the residents who are going to be impacted, especially the ones along Pine Valley Circle? It's going to be quite intrusive. It's going right across their front lawns, right across their driveways, into that basin. How are you anticipate engaging them with, first of all, understanding what this project's all about and how it's going to affect them?
I believe Casey's in the process of preparing a letter to each of the residents, and we're inviting them to a meeting at the site in the cul-de-sac, tentatively scheduled for June 3rd.
What time is that going to be? I'd like to be there. What time is that meeting going to be, Casey?
6 o'clock.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Rick, I've lost track and I can't recall what our overall plan was for assessing the scale and prioritization of the work necessary on the CMP stormwater piping. I know we talked about needing some support to do the assessment and the prioritization, and we needed completion of this Army Corps work. Could you just remind me where we are with, or what your thinking is around the timing of this effort?
Sure. We have the assistance set up from HRG to evaluate the Army Corps video data. Unfortunately, we don't seem to be able to get the Army Corps video data from the Army Corps because they all seem to be shut down at this point. So they have been pretty much completely unresponsive to our requests at this point. And without that data, we're at a standstill. There's no analysis we can do without the video data.
Are they still completing the rest of the inspection they were supposed to do this year, or is that all completely not happening too?
No, that's completely not happening. The last we heard from them is they were working on a new agreement to complete that work this year, but we've had no word regarding the status of that agreement.
Well, that's disappointing.
Very.
Is there any leverage we have or anything we can do as a board to try to change that situation?
Yeah, I mean, the Army Corps, I'm not even sure if they're outside of emergencies actually working. They're all working from home, just like the Commonwealth. So I'm not even sure they have access to their office where they could grab that data for us. I'm willing to drive down to Baltimore to get it at this point, but we're getting really no response.
Well, I don't have any suggestions. If any of the other board members have any. Kristen, is there anything we have here that we're not thinking of that we could push this along?
I talked to your representative, your federal representative, the Chrissy Houlihan.
Yeah. I'll make a call to Chrissy Houlihan's office tomorrow and see if we can shake the tree.
All right. Any other questions for Rick? Okay, moving on to item number 14, zoning officers announcements. Bill, anything to announce this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After a few months and several hearings later, the zoning hearing board rendered a decision on the antique shop variance request on Pottstown Pike. They did grant the request with 3 conditions. Those conditions were that he needed to obtain an HOP permit for the driveway. He needed to get a grading permit through Rick for the parking lot, and he needed to obtain a use and occupancy inspection from Andrea and John. So those were the 3 conditions. The applicant was happy to oblige. The zoning hearing board has just received 2 more applications, application number 14 and 15 for 2021. That hearing will take place on July 1st. at the now will be now at the Township Building at 7 p.m. And I will be back in touch with you guys at the June 15th to go over those applications. Those are both de minimis applications requesting variances for 2 feet setback in the rear yard. And I'll go over those applications at the June meeting. I did meet with John and Robin on Friday last week, and we finalized comments on the resale ordinance, and that will be before you. I sent the updated draft to Kristen today for her to take a look at and get that back for their June 15th meeting. Otherwise, I do not have anything else. Thank you.
Bill, the antique shop, does that need to comply with ADA requirements in terms of
Yes,
access
John
into the property
Beswick.
and the toilet facilities?
Yes, it does. And John Beswick and Andrea had already been to the property. I will give Mr. DePrisco this. He did his due diligence prior to even applying for his variance. John and Andrea had met with him prior to kind of have a pre-inspection of what he would need to do. So he will be compliant with ADA and to opt to be in a retail capacity.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions for Bill? Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Item number 15, approval of the Treasurer's report dated April the 30th, 2021 for the General Fund, the Sewer Revenue Fund, the Waste and Recycling Fund, and the Capital Reserve Fund, and the bills to be paid from these funds. Is there a motion to pay the bills?
There is. I'll make the motion to pay the bills.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks. So we have a motion and a second. Are there any board questions or comments? Casey, I have a question related to the balances in the general fund and the collection of the real estate taxes.
Certainly.
Is there any concern or any update, or is it looking like a regular year in terms of real estate tax versus prior years? It certainly seems okay from the information on page 5.
Yes, as far as I can tell, we're doing very well. Yes.
Okay. Are there other questions for Casey on the funds or the bills? Are there any public questions or comments on the funds or the bills to be paid? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Ashley?
Yes.
John?
Aye.
Hugh?
Aye.
Robin?
Aye.
I vote yes. Thank you. Casey, I did see we paid Manitou for, I presume, the completion of the transfer of the Barker property.
Correct.
So I forgot to mention in the e-news from Linda that we should be doing an article on that. Maybe if it's too late for May, we could maybe we can do it for June. But just
yeah, it's already drafted. It'll be submitted tomorrow. Mr. Barker was good enough to send me probably 6 or 7 paragraphs on the history of the property, include all the way back to the 1700s when Barker Park was part of a 200-acre farm in that vicinity. So it'll be a nice article about the history of the property and their donation of the original acreage to Barker Park to the township, and then the extra acre which the township just purchased. So it'll be a nice little article.
Okay, you're going to share the draft with the board in advance, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we want to make sure we recognize him and have a few little words of thanks in there as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. Final agenda item is number 16, opportunity for public comment. Is there any issues that a member of the public would like to raise that we haven't already discussed?
Sean, this is Doug. I have 2 questions, please, for Casey.
Go ahead, Doug.
Casey, the $2.2 million coming, is that allowed to be spent on debt service?
No, not at all. Not allowed.
Okay. Okay. Second question is there any way? It's a very low interest rate environment right now. And I understand the sewer bond we have has an 8-year call limitation, but is there any way to do a partial refinancing of that bond to lower some of the lower the payment at least a little bit?
No, we're only 4 years into that repayment. The call period is not right now, so we would not be able to do that.
Okay, but is there? I was just wondering if there's a stipulation in the documents if you can do a partial call or some sort of any way to get around that. I'm just trying to.
The bond indenture is very clear about the call period and repayment. We're not allowed to advance payments or anything since it was a publicly sold bond. If this were a private loan with a bank, we could pay it off early, but this is a bond, so we can't do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Are there any other public comments or questions someone would like to raise?
Sean, it's Bill.
Go ahead, Bill.
I forgot to mention during the zoning officers, the plans for the Concord Road subdivision, those are in the community room. If board members wish to stop by, they are laid out and ready for you to sign.
Okay.
But know that they won't be released for recording until we review the declaration and you have the stormwater agreement.
I'm not going to issue the approval letter until that's been done.
Yeah, and I'll work on those tomorrow.
There's quite a lot of documents in that room. I don't know if some of them have been there a while. If you guys would like to clean that up a little bit, I think you've got all the signatures on some of the documents. So if you just leave documents in there that are active and need signatures, that would help us.
Yeah, I went through all the stuff today, and I'm waiting for Ted's signature on some sewer things. And the board, when you do come in to sign those plans, the ordinances from last meeting will be there as well.
Okay.
Well, Sean, I have an announcement. I'm sorry to be the very last minute. I just wanted to bring the board up to speed that the Borough of Westchester, I think I mentioned this for the campus overlay, they have a meeting next Wednesday, May 26th, where I had brought to their attention the decision that you had made about taking the multifamily, the student housing out. So they're going to discuss that and hopefully agree to put it back into their zoning ordinance. And I'm waiting to do anything further with yours because right now your ordinance does make reference to the borough having that as a zoning district. So hopefully next Wednesday they'll agree to do that, and then we can move yours forward the way it is with that reference in there. So looking forward to probably the July meeting where that would be ready for adoption. There is a 30-day requirement that we have to send notice to all the property owners because their property will have a new overlay district attached to it. So there's also just some procedural steps that we need to make sure we follow before we actually get it to the hearing.
And Chris, you did pick up the requirement to exclude that property on Church Street that had just been sold to a private owner, right?
Yes, and we're waiting for that plan, the map from Bernardin's office as well.
Yep, and they're working on it as we speak.
Great.
Just to clarify there, so Kristen, you're saying that in our July workshop meeting or the regular board meeting, we'll be able to finally entertain that PUC overlay ordinance?
Yes.
Regular meeting. Yep.
Okay. All right. Good.
Are there any other issues?
We're going to go ahead and move forward regardless of what the borough does. That's the game plan at this point, correct?
I understand that, but there's language. I'm going to have to change some of the provisions. There's definitions that refer to the borough as if the borough was adopting that as a district. So until we know what their direction is as of next Wednesday, if they don't go forward with it, I need to go back and change some of those definitions. There's language in your code, in your ordinance, that makes reference to the borough adopting the same ordinance.
Okay.
Very good. Is there any other subjects to be brought up? Hearing none, let's take a vote. Go ahead, Hugh.
I was going to say I would make a motion to adjourn.
And I'll second it. So by a voice vote, we can adjourn. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Very good.
Any,
Thanks, everybody.
any opposed? No.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Okay. Good night, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks,
Thank
Sean. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Have a good night. Have a better
You
day
too.
tomorrow.
You got it.
Bye-bye.
Thanks you. Bye.